Ayo, hello Fantastics, it's Mr. Clintastik, and I am here with a Murders at Karlov Manor set review. It's been a while since I've done one of these. Honestly, before I get going too far, alright, wanted to grab some water before I got too deep. Sweet, but yeah, it is time for a new set in Magic the Gathering, Murders at Karlov Manor, long name. First, we're just going to get into the mechanics, and then I'm going to start reviewing the cards. I'm going to get through as much as I can while I can. Alright, so this is raw, this is live. I'll probably do video edits later, so yeah, bear with me. First mechanic we have is disguise. From what I understand, disguise is basically like morph. You can cover a face down creature with this reminder card. A face down creature that was cloaked or cast with disguise has ward 2. Whenever that creature becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter it unless the player plays 2. So this is morph. You could just I think morph was like what typically like 3 mana or something like that, or you flip it over for 3, something along those lines. You may cast this card face down for 3 as a 2/2 creature with ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its disguise cost. Okay. I like that. So you play it for 3 as a 2/2, and then later on you can actually get the value out of the card. And this has ward, so it's not an easy target. And I think cloak goes along those same lines. I don't know if I like disguise and cloak being so similar because they seem like the same thing to me, but I'll see if that becomes an issue. But yeah, we got disguise. Let's go on to cloak. To cloak a card, put it onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature with ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So it's pretty much like disguise. If you're instructed to cloak a card, put that card onto the battlefield face down. It's a 2/2 colorless creature with no name, no creature types. It has ward 2 but no other abilities. It has no mana cost. In fact, the resulting creature looks exactly like the face down creature you get if you cast a creature spell using disguise. Okay. So you got disguise, you got cloak. And I wonder how this really gonna play. Like this card in specific I was just telling my friend about. This exposed to the culprit. It's a 2 mana instant. You can choose one or both. Turn target face down creature face up, which for 2 mana is like super powerful, right? Like if my disguise cost is 5 to flip this over, but I can play it for 3 and flip it over for 2. I just played it in installments, and I think that's really cool. And then the next part is exile any number of face up creatures you control with disguise in a face down pile. Shuffle that pile, then cloak them. To cloak a card, put onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 creature with ward 2. Turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. And so, in my opinion, like exile any number of face up creatures you control with disguise in a face down pile. Shuffle the pile, then cloak them. This is like for 2 mana, you get to like protect your board or whatnot. So I really like that. I think disguise slash cloak is cool. I just don't know if we needed both of them. They're the same thing, but I could be wrong. Tell me what you think in the comments. Next, we have investigate old mechanic. Create a clue token. It's an artifact that has pay to sacrifice this artifact. Draw a card. Okay, simple enough. I think this disguise and cloak is going to be more of the interesting things. Let's see. Like more of the interesting mechanics so far because investigate's just really simple. They didn't even barely talk about it. When you're told to investigate, you create a clue token. A clue token is a colorless artifact token with pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. Not only are extra cards always welcome, but some cards in the set have abilities that reward you for sacrificing artifacts. Cool. Next we have suspect. A suspected creature has menace and can't block. I like the flavor of that a lot. I really like the flavor of that. It gives it menace and I don't like the fact that they can't block, but it's flavorful because we don't really trust you. Like, so you're a menace. I don't know. It's like, what are we gonna do about this suspect here? I kind of like that. Then we have collect evidence. Collecting evidence is a cost that you may be asked to pay in a variety of contexts. It can be part of the activation cost of an ability or an additional cost of a spell. It can even be the cost imposed by a ward ability, like in the example below. Axbane Fearfox or Ferox 4 mana Death Touch Haste. Ooh, 4 mana 4/4 Death Touch Haste. That is something nice. Collect evidence 4. Whenever this creature becomes a target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, counter it unless that player exiles cards with total mana value 4 or greater from their graveyard. So I'm guessing we're going to be seeing a lot of evidence or collect evidence, and we have to act in kind based off of what that is telling us to do. For sure. And last but not least, we have cases. Cases are like what are they called? The ones that have chapters. New type of enchantment. I forget the type. Uh, Dang it, and they're not saying it. But essentially, it comes with abilities, and like every turn that your upkeep. Let's see if I can find the. Here it is. Individual cases have 3 abilities. The top ability is always active. Okay. The middle ability, preceded by to solve, sets out the conditions under which you can solve the case. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, if the case is unsolved, if you have met the conditions described in the middle ability, the case becomes solved. If you haven't, if the case is unsolved and you've met the condition described in the middle ability, the case becomes solved. Hmm. Am I reading that right? At the beginning of your end step, if the case is unsolved, and if you've met the condition described in the middle ability. So you have to do both. Because it's not so in the text it says if unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step, but that's only if you've figured out how to do that. So I was misunderstanding that. Let me see if I can. It's kind of frustrating me. Sagas is what it's called. I was like, these remind me of sagas. But it's not necessarily a saga because it's not a progression of abilities. It's conditions of abilities. I like that. So, for instance, in this case, when it ETBs, you investigate. Case of the Filch Falcon. To solve, you have to control 3 or more artifacts, and I guess this is static. It stays on the board the whole time, and when you finally get your 3 artifacts, you solve the case. Solved, you pay 3, sacrifice this case, put 4/1/1 counters on target non-creature artifact. It becomes a 0/0 bird creature with flying in addition to its other types. Okay, so that's what we have. We have our disguise, cloak, investigate, suspect, collect evidence, in cases. What is your favorite mechanic? What is your favorite mechanic? And so far, before I even get to really check the set, I think it's I don't know. I have to really see how these cases work. But so far, I think it's going to be disguise cloak. I think we're going to get a lot of good abilities through that mechanic or those twin mechanics. So this is a tweak to something called manifest, and I'm not familiar with manifest. Maybe that's why I think these are so similar. But these are the most intriguing to me: disguise and cloak. So yeah, let's move over to. Oh, all right, let's move over to the set, and I'm gonna start with the white spells and go from there. I don't know if I'm able to get through every color at this point, but I'm gonna do my best. So yeah, what we have here, we have Delaney Streetwise Lookout. Probably, can I slide this over? No, I can move myself though. There we go. There we go. Delaney Streetwise Lookout, 3 mana, legendary creature, human scout, 2/2. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Okay, I think this is like really good. 3 mana, 2/2. Not my favorite. And this is a limited review. This isn't necessarily for standard or uh, modern, commander, things like that. This is for limited, like sealed and draft. That's what I enjoy doing. So typically, I'm not gonna go for a 3/2 2/2. I mean, a 3 mana 2/2 on the ground. I'll probably do it if it's in the air, maybe if it has menace. So this would really be an ability situation for me. Creature you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked, given unblockable to your what are they called now? Disguised and cloaked creatures. That's gonna be huge. That's gonna be huge. And then if an ability a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, it doubles up the ability. So there's a lot of oomph in this card. How well is this going to perform? How well is this going to perform in limited? I don't know because it's so easy to take out, right? You're not going to be attacking with this. Well, no, you can attack with this because it's a 2/2. Hmm. Is Delaney going to be a menace? We'll have to see. But it's nowhere near the power of Aurelia's Vindicator, in my opinion, a 4 mana. Two generic, two white, flying lifelink ward 2 with disguise X, 3 and a white. When it's turned face up, exile up to X cards, other X other target creatures from battlefield and or creatures from graveyards. When it leaves the battlefield, return the exile cards to the owner's hand. So this is kind of like an excavator. You play this disguised as a 2/2, you know, but you can sink X into it. And when you sink the X into it, you can exile creatures from the battlefield or creatures from the graveyard. That's kind of insane. So you can exile their creatures from the battlefield, exile a creature from the graveyard. You can exile your creatures from the graveyard, and then if something happens to the Vindicator, you get them. Well, no, when it's turned face up. Wait, no, when it leaves the battlefield, you get the cards back. So your opponent gets to get their cards back if you use it as a removal spell, but hopefully this has done you the value you needed. And in worst case scenario, you're getting your cards back from the graveyard as well. So you're refueling yourself and you're taken away from their board. And it's a 4/2 lifelinker with ward 2. This is yeah, I like this. I love and it's flying and lifelink. Oh jeez. That's something serious. All right. 10th District Hero, 2 mana, creature, human, 2 3. That's not great. Rare. One generic and a white, collect evidence, 2. We mentioned collect evidence already. 10th District Hero becomes a human detective with base power 2. With base power and toughness 4 4 and gains vigilance. Wait, so I'm confused. Pay 2 and collect evidence 2. So what am I doing here? For collecting evidence? Collect evidence 4. If it becomes a detective, it becomes a legendary. If 10th District Hero is a detective, it becomes a legendary creature named Maliva the Stalwart. It has base power and toughness 5 5 and gains other creatures you control have indestructible. Oh, I think I get it. Collecting evidence basically just refers to you're basically using your creatures in the yard to do so every time. So, like with the Ferox I was talking about earlier, collect evidence 4 is to do whatever you're for the ward ability cost. You got to exile creatures with value 4 or greater, with total mana value 4 or greater from the graveyard. I got it now. I was misunderstanding. So with this, if you want to activate it, you have to pay 2, exile. Is it a creature? Let's double check. Yeah, uh, no, it's not even creature. Target player exiles cards with total mana value 4 or greater. Okay, I got you. I got you. That's cool. So you pay 2, you exile from your graveyard something mana costs 2 or 2 or greater, and you can do the ability. This can give other creatures indestructible and it be a 5/5. I mean, I can see people playing it. I can see people playing it for sure. Will I want to play it? I don't know. It's not that exciting to me, but I think I'm gonna see it on the battlefield. Like I said, I like my evasive creatures more than anything, and these abilities seem cool, but I'll have to really see them at work to really be excited about it. Next, we have Doorkeeper Thrall, 2 mana, 1 generic and a white. Flash Flyer, artifacts and creatures ETBing don't cause abilities to trigger. It's a 1 2. You'll probably see me play this if I get it. Flash 1 2 that can stop artifacts and creatures ETBs. Now, it's going to depend too, though. If I have a lot of ETBs, I don't know. I just don't know. So, we'll have to see on that. But I'll definitely. I mean, the stats aren't great. A 1 2 flyer, but it'll typically defend against your 1 1s. A flash creature is great too. So far my flying creatures are already like taking the cake. Case of the Uneaten Feast. This is one of the cases. It's for 1. Whenever a creature ETBs under your control, you gain a life. It's not bad. It's not gonna help you like win the game unless you have triggers, but you have to see. To solve, you've gained 5 or more life this turn. I mean, Vindicator can help you do that. It can help. It's not gonna do it by itself. And solve, sacrifice this case. Wait, yeah. Sacrifice this case. Creature cards in your graveyard gained. You may cast this card from your graveyard until end of turn. Mm, meh, meh. Like maybe I should be giving these cards like a rating. Like for me, like if I was rating them 1 out of 5, for instance, I would probably give this like a 4. Delaney Streetwise Lookout, I would give it like a 4. It's not a five. I would put Vindicator. Well, maybe I would put Lookout as like a three. Like it's good. Maybe like a 3.5. Just because it doesn't have that I be looking for, but it does have that evasion. It, yeah, I think it's like a 3.5, 3.75 or something. I haven't done a set review in a long time. Like I used to have my numbers written out, but I was like, nah, I'm just gonna hop on. I really just wanted to read the card, see what's going on, and start preparing myself for the set that's coming out. But anyway, like in most cases, even if these were in the same pack, I would choose Vindicator. So I know Vindicator in my head is better. I would put this like a 4.5, and I would have to see if there's any cards in the set that's really like better than Vindicator to me to really. If there's none that's better than Vindicator, I'd be like, okay, cool, this is a five. So until that point, I'm gonna have to give this like a 4 to a 4.5, and I would give like Delaney Lookout like a 3.5, and whatnot. 10th District Hero, I'll probably put it at like a 3, maybe a 3.5, 3 point, yeah, 7.5, something like that. I wouldn't give it a 4. It's not like all the way up there, but it's a solid 2 mana, 2/3 with some great ability. So I could see itself climbing up between 3 and 3.5. The throw is probably like, to be honest, is probably like a 2.5. It's not that great. It's not like it doesn't have these great abilities like these other cards here, but and it's a flash 1/2 flyer, so it's not that great. But I would play it personally, so I give it at least a 2.5 to a 3, simply based off of me playing it often. And if I found myself like, okay, cool, I've tried 10th District Hero or I've tried Delaney and they didn't work out for me or whatnot. No, I don't think there's a situation where these two cards really just outplay, underperform. So I'm gonna put this at like a 2.5. Anyways, I'm getting distracted. Case of an Uneaten Feast, I probably won't even play that, so I probably put it at a 1. Like I wouldn't play this at all. Unyielding Gatekeeper, 2 mana Elephant Cleric, 3/2 with Disguise. When its turn face up, exile another target non land permanent. If you controlled it, return it to the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, its controller creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So this is kind of like removal. You can place this down. Okay, yeah. You can put this face down for 3. It's encouraging you to put this down for 3, essentially, because it's like, okay, you place this down for 3, and then you get to use it as an exile spell. So 3 plus 2, so that's 5 mana exile spell that leaves them with a 2/2 or gives you a bounce ability. Hmm. Or you can just play it as a 2 mana 3/2. I like this. I think it's between like a 3, 3.5. I'll probably come back with a number rating later when I have something written down. Today I'm just going to focus on kind of getting through the set, seeing what's going on. 3/2, that's really easy to block. Then they want you to, it's a 2 mana 3/2, so in a lot of situations, that's what I would play it for as a 3 mana, a 2 mana 3/2. You get it late game, you can run it out as the 3 mana 2/2 in hopes of getting the ability, or they can just kill it before you get the ability. So, but it does have Ward 2. Eh, eh. Disguised creatures do get a little bit better because they have that Ward 2 attached to them. That's really interesting. Next, we have Assemble the Players. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Once each turn, you may cast a creature spell with 2 or less from the top of your library. With power 2 or less from the top of your library. And it's a 2 mana enchantment. If I'm understanding correctly, if the creature has Disguise, and So say the creature is a 5 mana card, and it has disguise, but it's a 2 power creature. From what I'm understanding, you can still disguise it out. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. So we'll follow up on that. But from what I understand, you can disguise it out and flip it later. Assemble the players. If you run pretty much a strict disguise deck and you pair it with something like you happen to look up and get Delaney, like that would put Delaney straight to a 5. Like, because you're gonna get so much value from those disguise creatures. So I put this at like a 2.5. It's not gonna just win you the game, but if you build around it, I think this could get up to like a 4. Eh, it only does it once a turn though. Once each turn. That is a deterrent. That is a deterrent. Wojek Investigator, 3 mana, 2/4 flying vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards than you. 3 mana, 2/4 is not bad. Flying and vigilance is really good. I love this. I'd play it pretty much every time. Um, and it gives you a free investigate. It draws you cards. This is great. Just by itself, no questions asked. And once again, if you happen to get Delaney, it can't be blocked by creatures with 3 or greater, right? So yeah, solid card for me. Easily above a 3. Easily instant threes. Baseline. 3.5, 4 maybe. Gotta wait and see. Next we have No Witnesses, 4 mana sorcery. Each player who controls the most creatures investigates, then destroy all creatures. Nobody wants to see that. I don't want to be playing. So I'm not good with board wipes in limited. I'm I'm not good playing them, and I'm not good playing against them. They're so rare to see that my strategy don't typically revolve around a control strat where I'm wanting to just goof around and then board wipe. I don't get to set that up right. I don't alley oop it right. The opponents typically, I mean, I'll be sitting there thinking, hey, everything's great. Let me jam up my things. And they're like, board wipe. I'm like, man, there's only one of those in the set. So I think this is going to really have some blowout games go on. I just don't think I'll be doing those blowout games. But I would put it instant for. If you have a board wipe in your deck that just destroys everything, it's especially at 4 mana. That's a slam dunk. Next we have Perimeter Enforcer, flying, lifelink 1/1. The flyers are flying, right? Whenever another detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, it Perimeter Enforcer gets 1/1 until end of turn. 2 mana 1/1 flying lifelink. So far I'm already seeing if you want to play mono white, you try to get some of these flyers and go. I would definitely do that with the Vindicator. And they have some low mana ground creatures too. White looking pretty stacked. The only card that just, in my opinion, wasn't good so far was Case of the Uneaten Feast because it doesn't do much on its own. Everything else we're attacking in with, we're getting some kind of upside with, we're getting some kind of control with. Yeah, white's looking stacked. Next we have Wrench. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. It has vigilance and pay 3. Tap target creature. You can pay 2, sacrifice it, draw a card, and it equips for 2. It looks like we have a line of all these artifacts and their clue equipments. I'm sure that typing's going to be relevant. Quick creature gets 1/1 and has vigilance. 1/1 and vigilance with your flyers is going to be great. And this is a 1 mana artifact. You can just slam it down turn one, two, three. Equip 2 is not a bad cost. And it gives you control over your opponents for 3. Solid to me. Next we have Forum Familiar. Creature Cat 1/1. You can disguise it for 2. When its turn face up, return another target permanent you control to its owner's hand and put a 1/1 counter on the familiar. So 1 mana potential 2/2 or a 3 mana 2/2. I don't like this. A 1 mana 1/1 that doesn't do enough for me. No, Familiar's not that great. And in most cases, I'm not trying to bounce my own things. That's just not what I'm wanting to do. Next, we have Case File Auditor, 3 mana, creature, human detective, a 1/4. When it enters battlefield, you solve a case. Oh, you may reveal an enchantment card from among. No, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast case spells. So kind of like a case encourager. I feel it. So far, I'm not seeing a bunch of cases that I'm just like, oh man, I'm excited about. So the card doesn't even come off appealing initially. I think it's a cool ability, and I think somebody else could probably use it to their great advantage. And it tutors you up an enchantment card. Hmm. Well, tries to. Hmm. A 1/4. I'm not sold on this. I'm not sold on Case File Auditor. Call a Surprise Witness sorcery. 2 mana. Return target creature card with mana 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a flying counter on it. It's a spirit in addition to its other types. What? What? Yeah, this is really great. And it gives the creature flying. So these is 3 or less. Yeah. Auditor, the cat even falls into that. All these creatures here fall into the category except for the Vindicator. But the fact that you can give 10th District Hero flying, this 3/2 comes back with flying. Well, this already has flying, but you get the point. Even this, you play it, you get an enchantment back, um, or whatnot. It dies, or you sack it, something, and you get to play it again. That's a lot of value in that. Call a Surprise Witness. I kind of like that, and it's flavorful. I'm not gonna want to run a bunch of them, but if my creature's a creature, and yeah, solid is excellent. Case of the Gateway Express, 2 mana. When this case enters the battlefield, choose target creature you don't control. Each creature you control deals 1 damage to that creature. To solve, 3 or more creatures attack this turn. And solved, creatures you control get +1/+0. You'll want a bunch of creatures on the board, right? You'll want a bunch of creatures on the board, but that's interesting to have a damage dealer in white. So I have 5 creatures on the board, 1 damage to the particular creature. So, times 5. Then if you attack with 3 or more creatures, say it's 5/1/1s, you're swinging in for 10. This has some merit. And this may be something I want to bounce with the cat. the familiar here. I play this for 3, flip it over. When it flips over, it gets a 1/1 on it. Not excellent, not saying it's excellent, but I could bounce this right here and replay it, deal damage again. This is a permanent that can deal damage. I like that. And I'm sure we'll probably see some damage dealers in red that pairs with the cat. So I'm not going to say the cat's totally terrible, comes off pretty bad. But it'll need some support cards, some cards that you really want to bounce back to your hand and get that value again. So yeah, case of the Gateway Express, I'll probably try. I'd put it around a. I'll still put it like a 2.5, 3, because I'm not sold on it. It's not to me yet. Neighborhood Guardian, 2 mana. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less ETBs under your control, target creature you control gets +2. No, gets +1/+1 until in the turn. It's 2 mana. Mono white seems like it's gonna be a thing. Like disguise and what was the other mechanic? And cloak were really interesting to me. It guarantees the creature gonna have that power 2 or less. So you disguise them or cloak them to the board. This triggers. Target creature gets 1/1. We already got a line of flyers because it's not doing it to just itself. It does it to any creature. You got your flyer, boom, swing in. Unicorn, loving it, loving it. Karlov Watchdog, 4 mana 3/2, Vigilance. Permanents your opponent's control can't be turned face up during your turn. And whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. I'm not seeing my token generators yet. So a 4 mana 3/2 on the ground, even with Vigilance, I don't care about. Permanents your opponent's control can't be turned face up during your turn. Is Disguise instant? Wait a second. That that's another important thing. So I got basically like flash creatures out there. Oh man. Even still, 4 mana for this I think is a little overcost. Especially in limited. Granted, like say they're on the play, they play out their morph creature on turn 3. You know, the next turn they can flip. But it's just say they can't do it on your turn. They can still flip the card. Now, if this completely stopped them from flipping the morph creature, yeah. But this still allows them to morph to flip it. So I'm not too big a fan. And this attack with 3 or more creatures, until I start seeing some tokens, I'm like, what are we talking about? Alright, so yeah, right now I probably put this at like a 1. I'm not excited about it. I have to see it really put in some work, do some numbers for me to consider it even, slightly good. Give it flying and some wings. Red Bull. Anyway, Sanctuary Wall, 2 mana, 1 generic and a white. Artifact Creature Wall, Defender, 2 generic and a white. You can tap target creature. You may put a stun counter on it. If you do, put a stun counter on Sanctuary Wall. There's a lot of control going on in this set. Now, for me, this isn't overly exciting. I would really put this at like a 1, especially since we have an artifact that essentially does the same thing, but it powers up a creature and draws its card later. But if you're looking for something on the ground to kind of like wall out the opponents, because this is gonna wall out those morph creatures, those 3 mana 2/2s is gonna wall them out. Otherwise, it's not winning any games. It's not gonna win any games. I'd put it at a 1. If I'm running this, I'm probably a little desperate. That's probably what's happening. I'm a tad desperate. Needed it. It's another spell to put in my build. I'm giving it a 1. Honestly, it's probably 1 or below. I'm not a fan. Absolving Lamasu, 5 mana, 4 generic and a white. Flyer. When it ETBs, all suspected creatures are no longer suspected. Huh. Okay. When it dies, you gain 3 life and suspect up to 1 target creature an opponent controls. Am I tripping? Because I want my creatures to be suspects. Like they can't block, but they have menace, and I'm gonna be swinging in. That's what we're wanting to do. I'm not wanting to just be on defense. So I find like this is kind of defensive in a way because if they have a bunch of suspected creatures on the board and you're dealing with all these menace creatures, you just take that away. 5 mana 4/3 isn't exciting, but once again, if suspect is potent and the opponents are really utilizing the ability, yeah, this is gonna be great. All it needed was flash. It doesn't have that, but still good. I would put it at probably 2.5, 2 or 3. White is really looking to be good right now. All right, Essence of Antiquity, 5 mana, 3 generic, 2 white, has disguise. When it's turn face up, you creature you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Untap them. It's a 110. Oh, I'll put that at a 1. I'm not hype about a 5 mana 110. I mean, once again, blocking. If you're trying to really like wall out the opponent on the ground, especially, cool. But this isn't winning us games. When I really rate my cards, I'm like, how likely is this card to win us games? And if the card is solely there to make sure we don't lose, that's not necessarily us winning. That's us not losing. So that's kind of how I base my scale on that. Next, we have Case of the Pilfered Proof. Whenever a detective enters the battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, put a 1/1 counter on it. That's strong. Let's see how many detective we had so far. One, two, three. So only three. We'd have to have some more kind of in the uncommon to common section. To solve, you have to control three or more detectives, so we have to keep our eye out for those detectives. And if the mystery is solved, if the case is solved, if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a clue token are created instead. I don't like that. Double up my tokens. Double up my stuff. Don't just give me a clue with it. Right now, this is giving me big one vibes. Not something I'm too excited to play unless I get enough detectives. Raza Raza. Not on my watch. I'm going to give this a strong 4, 4.5. Easy. Honestly, this might be a 5 for me. Exile target attacking creature. I'm giving this a 4.5 at least. You know, creatures do have ward too, so that might be an issue. But most times you're going to get this at like a 3 mana cost. Exile target tapped creature or something like that. This is exile target attacking creature. This is going to pop off all the time. I'll run as many of these as I possibly can while still maintaining actual threats. Definitely 4.5. Not on my watch. Will be something that you see me play pretty much every time I see it. Krovat Haunch, 1 mana artifact food. Equipped creature gets +2, +0. You can pay 2, sacrifice it, you gain 3 life. When it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, create 2 1/1 white dog creature tokens. This is too expensive. Okay, so you pay 1. You can equip for 2 to get +2. Cool. You can pay 2, sacrifice to gain 3 life. Cool. When you put in the graveyard, you need 4 mana up total, so you can sacrifice to gain 3 life, and you can pay 2 to get the 2 white creature tokens. Maybe it's not overcosted. Maybe it's just on theme. Once again, you put this on one of your flyers. and they're swinging in for, if it's a one power flyer, it's swinging in for three times the damage. And say you're in a position where it's like, well, this could be a tide turner. You sat, gain three life, and make two blockers, instant speed for four mana. I'll put this at like a 2, 2.5, maybe even 2.75. I don't want to say this necessarily a 3, but it could be if this really, if white is strong and have that aerial assault, and you have a few of these going, and you can kind of use it to your advantage and get the value. And it's one of the few token generators I've seen so far, if I've seen any. Yeah, I'm actually going to call it at a 3. I think this is solid. It's not just an artifact. This might even start, it's actually growing in my mind as I think about it, because I'm like, this isn't even just an equipment. It makes you creatures and gains you life. I'm going to put it at a 3 for now, maybe a 3.25. It's just steadily growing as I consider it. Makeshift Binding, 3 mana, enchantment. When the ETBs exile target creature an opponent controls until Makeshift Binding leaves the battlefield, you gain 2 life. Wish this had flash. Solid removal. Put it like a 3. I mean, it's not the worst. It's just average. Make your move, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. For 3, instant speed is strong. I think this is really going to be dependent on the artifact game, the enchantment game. Now, the enchantment game is going to be kind of there because of cases. People are going to want to play cases. But are the cases strong? We'll have to see. Creatures with power 4 or greater, there's going to be a lot of creatures dodging that or playing around this to a degree because they can be disguised. Still, overall, I think is average. I don't want to play a bunch of these. These aren't game winning, so I still put it like a 3, just an average card. On the job, 4 mana, 2 generic, 2 white, instant. Creatures you control get +2, +1 until in turn. Investigate. I'll put this as like a 1. Like if you build your deck right and you get enough creatures out, this could be great. But a 4 mana pump the board has not been working for me the last few years. I'll say that it has not been working for me at all the last few years. I haven't been able to establish a board where it's like, okay, cool, something like this is gonna win me the game. I've been in positions where they're gaining life back or they have a big enough board to really stall me or wall me out. So on the job right now, kind of coming off like a 1 or a 2. You let me know what you think because I could be wrong on that. Tell me if the 4 mana pump spells have been working for you because even my opponents, it's not even working for them. I don't even see cards like this in limited hardly ever. So let me know what you think on that. I'm giving it a strong 1. Eh, 1.5. Because it's playable. It's not totally unplayable. Maybe even a 2. Is somebody? Next, we have Inside Source. When Inside Source enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. You can pay 3, tap it. Target detective you control gets +2/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery, and it's a 1/1. This really isn't too great to me. 3 mana for 2 bodies isn't bad. And you can tap it, pump it. I would really have to see this at work to be like, oh, this is good. Once again, one of the only other cards that gives you an additional creature, something to play with your cat if you want to bounce and play again. But how often are you going to want to do that? That's a big consideration. So I'll put this kind of like a 2. I think it's kind of playable. 2 bodies, like you play this, play it again, you have 4 bodies. You play it again, you can start seeing your worth. but I don't think it's gonna just offhand be winning you games. Next, we have Hazda Vigilante, 5 mana, 4/4. When Hazda Vigilante enters the battlefield or attacks, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control with power 2 or less. So, those morph creatures, even when they flip over, or those disguised creatures, they're still going to have that 1/1 counter. And this is a 5 mana 4/4. I'm going to put this at a 2 because it's not exciting. It's not something like at a 3 where I'm like, okay, this is average. I want a bunch of these in my build. I'll play multiple copies. And I think that's for me where I'm going to start putting the threes at. Y'all are kind of like on my journey of redeveloping my rating guide. So like inside source, I would probably run multiple copies of this. Probably two, three copies, cool, especially if I'm running a token strat. Vigilante at 5 mana, I can't do that. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. So it's probably like a two, and I don't. It's hard to put it anywhere above that, but it'll do well in the right build. Next, we have Griffnot Tracker, 4 mana, flyer, 3/2. When it enters battlefield, exile up to two target cards from a single graveyard. I love my flyers. 4 mana, 3/2. I'd probably run multiple copies of this. I don't know how many, probably up to four, maybe five, just because of the value it gives. I wish it gave like a 1/1 creature token with it or something. I don't know how valuable it's going to be exiling from the graveyard. So right now I'm kind of going to give it a 2.5 to a 3 just because of the mana cost and the power. We'll have to see. And with so many creatures having so many abilities, I'm just not uh, on this just yet. Seasoned Consultant, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever you, and it's a detective, and this is a detective. So we're starting to see a few more detectives come up that compare with our case of the Pilfered Proof. We'd have to just see. But whenever you attack with three or more creatures, Seasoned Consultant gets 2/0 until end of turn. 2 mana, 1/3. Under exciting. That can be a 3/3. Not something I necessarily want to play. I hate to say this under a 3, but I got to put this at like 2.5. It's just not exciting. It's not something that's just blasting in winning you games. It's probably even like a 2.5 or a 2. It's just something you can throw in your build. Due Diligence, 3 mana, enchant creature. Due Diligence enters battlefield, target creature you control other than enchanted creature get 2/2 and gains vigilance. Enchanted creature gets 2/2 and has vigilance. Until okay, so this will ultimately give you 4/4 worth of power. You play this, you put it on a creature, it gets 2/2 permanently. Your flyers are gonna love it, and then another creature for the turn gets 2/2. This is pretty nice. I can't run too many copies of this. I can run maybe one, two, maybe three copies. So I would put it maybe like a 2.75 as well. Two, 2 to 3 is kind of that range because three is I'm cool running this card. Multiple copies in my head. But certain cards you can't run. You can't run a bunch of these and win a game. Versus inside source, even though it's not the most powerful card in existence, you run a bunch of these, you at least have a board state. So to me, this kind of comes up to a 3 versus something like I mentioned with the Vigilante, the Consultant. Due Diligence is just something you cannot run way too many copies of. So I got to put it under 3. I got to put it like a 2, 2.5. But I think in the right builds, it's going to do work. And maybe that's another thing. If it takes the right build for it to do work, maybe that drops it even lower. Maybe it's automatically a 2 because, hey, you need something else to really make this pop. And 1 would just be unplayable. No, wouldn't 0 be unplayable? I think 0 should be unplayable. Hmm. So it's going to be from 0 to 5 or from 1 to 5. I'll have to think on that. Next, we have Museum Watch, 4 mana, creature soldier, 3 2. When it dies, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token, and it has disguise. Don't we have something to get things back from the yard? Right? Uh, yeah, Vindicator. That's mythic. We're not gonna be getting things back from the yard very often. Maybe we had a case that could do it. I think there was a case. Oh, no, Surprise Witness only gets mana value 3 or less back. Could have sworn we had something to get things back from the yard. Other than that sorcery, thought it was a case that did it. Yes, Case of Uneaten Feast. Sacrifice this case. Creature cards in your graveyard gain. You may cast this from your graveyard this turn. So that's the only thing I can see this really being anything for. It dies. We play it back, and we end up with netting a creature. 4 mana, 2/2, 3/2. That leaves a 2/2 when it dies isn't the worst, but it's just not the best. I'm gonna put that at a 2 as well. Defenestrated Phantom, 6 mana flyer with disguise, 4/3. Okay, you play this on 3, and at 5 mana you flip it over 4/3. I like it. You can play this at 3 every game and just flip it over later. I play multiple copies of this. I put it at least a 3. At least. And it'll go up if the card is actually good. Market Watch Phantom, 2 mana, Spirit Detective. When another creature with power 2 or less enters battlefield under your control, Market Watch Phantom gains flying until end of turn. So if you build your, disguise, uh, cloak build, this could get good. 2 mana, 2/2 solid. I, what's crazy is you could probably run as many of these as you wanted. Um, you play this on turn 2. You play this on turn 3. The first one it triggers, it flies over. Play it again, and the next one triggers. This is probably like a 3.25. This is actually going like, especially for a common card. This is actually coming off really really nice to me. Auspicious Arrival, 2 mana, instant. Target creature gets 2/2 until end of turn and investigate. So you pump and draw a card off this. I'll put it at a 2. Can't win games by itself, but it's solid. And then next we have Novice Inspector. Whenever Novice Inspector enters battlefield, investigate. So ETBs draws your card. Something else that kind of pairs with the cat. I've been saying that because I've been trying to keep in mind, like, why would I ever want to bounce my thing in limited for this? Tell me. So that's all of the white spells. And overall, I feel like White's whole spiel is get these low cost creatures out there and beat face. You know, there's a couple ways to make clues. There's ways to play things off the top, manipulate your library. There's ways to tutor up or get some card advantage. There's some aggressive artifacts like 1/1 and 2/0 and things like that. There's a few flyers. How many flyers did we actually end up with? I almost want to consider Market Watch Phantom. This is a sleeper for me. I feel like I'll end up playing this surprisingly a lot. Market Watch Phantom. Like whenever another creature with power 2 or less ETBs, it gains flying. And so this could even work. Say you have one of your disguise creatures out, and it's 2 power. You flip it, boom. It already made it fly from ETBing as a disguised creature. Then you could pop this in the air, you know, offensively or defensively. But honorary flyer. So we got one, two. So two common flyers and an honorary flyer. Then we have one, two, three, four. Why is this rare? Four, five. And then five, kind of like uncommon to rare flyers. So I think, once again, cheap flyers, you equip them up, fly overhead, use the card advantage. Cases don't look that great. I'll have to see them at work. But I think there's some solid things going on in white. Especially with the graveyard manipulation. Turn target creature card with the mana value 3 or less from graveyard to the battlefield. Put a flying counter on it. Like, give me a bunch of call a surprise witnesses, and these Jesus, where are they? Market Watch Phantoms, and let me just pump them up. So yeah, that's gonna be my review for white. That took a little bit longer than I expected. And then next I'll come back. I'll review blue. I'll give a short overview of the mechanics again, and just start discussing blue. And then hopefully by tonight I can get to black, and then probably tomorrow red, then green, and then by what's today? By the next day we'll try to get into these multicolored cards and whatnot. So yeah, bear with me. Like I said, it's my first time doing a review in a number of years, actually. I don't know how many years it's been since I actually done a set review. So if you enjoy my content, please be sure to like, follow, subscribe. Helps the channel to grow in the future. And as always, you guys are fantastic. My name is Mr. Clintastik. I'm going to catch you guys next time.